Hi, we're back with another video, and today we're just gonna get straight into it. Today I wanted to talk a lot about survival mode and how a lot of people live in survival mode, so much so to the point where they don't really know who they are. They don't really know what it feels like to be in a normal state of being. Who are you when you're not looking forward to the next thing? Who are you when you're not getting ready for work, having to constantly worry about homework, internships, activities, things like that? Survival mode, I feel like, is something that all of us experience. Survival mode, it has different layers to it, obviously, depending on like your living situation. Like, obviously some people might be literally in more of a physical survival mode when it comes to providing for themselves and things of that such, and some people might be more in an emotional survival mode. But regardless of the survival mode or the type of survival mode you are in, they all kind of have the same overall main idea, is that it is a dysregulated nervous system, and your nervous system is constantly being triggered by honestly just the things that come about in life. Dysregulated nervous system or the survival mode can occur, like I said, when you're constantly in rush mode. You wake up, you want to sleep in 15 more minutes, but then once you sleep in that 15 more minutes, then you're in a rush to get to school, and then you're in a rush to do this and do that. And it can also accumulate when you are in an environment where you are constantly faced with an emotional trigger. I'm trying to think an example of this, let me think. I don't know, like, let's say for example you are a teenager and you are struggling in math class, for example, and let's say for example you have a parent or your mom's constantly nagging you about how, like, oh, like, you're not doing good in math class, this is that and the third, even though you have really put your best foot forward and you are really trying. You constantly kind of have that environment where you're constantly something that you might be insecure about or something that you're lacking in is constantly being highlighted. You know, you're just constantly in a state where you're exposed to a stimulus, a person, a place, a thing, where it is something that is creating an emotional trigger inside you, and that emotional trigger occurs almost every day, because obviously you're encountering that person, place, thing, or whatever it may be every single day. I feel like it's been hard to consume certain types of content, especially when it comes to content about, like, oh, like regulating your nervous system and all those things like that, because I feel like I have done little things to regulate my nervous system, and I feel like there's probably more I can do. You know, you can always do more, but I feel like as far as like the average person goes, it is hard to implement those things into your routine. If you are a person that is always in a rush, that has a job, that has an internship, that has school, has this, has that, it can be hard to say, okay, I'm going to wake up an hour earlier just so I can relax rather than having to get ready. Like, no, like, if you were up late the night before doing this and doing that, you're gonna want to get all the sleep you want to get. Like, I completely understand that, and encountering survival mode is something that's very, like, inevitable. Like, I feel like I feel like everybody has experienced a sort of survival mode. Definitely for me, I can experience it for months at a time during the school year and sometimes after that. But overall, like, as long as it doesn't consume you, which is a hard thing to say, because when you think about it, that survival mode does consume all of us. It really does consume everything you do, because if you're constantly in a rush and a nervous wreck, then it's like when it's finally time to, like, come home and, like, sit and maybe watch TV or YouTube or something like that, like, personally for me, I'm already thinking about all the homework that I have to do. So then it's just like I can't even really enjoy the present moment. And I think that that's the thing that people have to balance, is they have to learn how to say, okay, I might be in survival mode at this moment because of all my responsibilities, but how do I sit and how do I balance this with the present moment? Although survival mode is something that is inevitable given the fact that people have a lot of responsibilities in their life, I feel like survival mode truly also becomes an issue not only when you're unable to live in the present moment, but I feel like survival mode also truly becomes an issue where you're actually no longer in a situation where you have to be in survival mode, but yet your body and your brain and your mind is still functioning in survival mode. I've caught myself doing this a lot, and honestly, I do this a lot. The only explanation I can really, like, give for this is that the fact that your body is so used to being in such a rush or a fast-paced state, that when you don't have to be in a fast-paced state, your body and mind still resorts to that state even though it doesn't necessarily have to. And I feel like that's when it's an issue, and it's no longer, at that point, it's no longer really being in survival mode, because survival mode is separate from your natural or normal state of being, right? It's no longer survival mode. That anxious state, that rush, fast, next thing is then now your state of being. And once it becomes your state of being, that's inevitably who you are, because how you move, if you move with anxiety, if you move with constant trying to push for the next thing, push for this, push for that, like that becomes who you are. Do you want to be that person? Some people might call people like that. Some people might be like, oh, I'm just goal driven, oh, I'm just hardworking, oh, I'm just this, or I'm just that. But do you want to live like that? Do you want to live like that to the point where you are no longer in your true state of being because you have allowed survival mode to attach itself to your identity? And this can also be something hard to notice, because I didn't notice that I was also stuck in survival mode. I feel like I've been in survival mode for the past month. Considering I'm not in school anymore, I shouldn't be in survival mode, which is something I like noticed. But it is very hard to tell, because I sat to myself and I was thinking to myself, like, you know, this summer isn't going to be perfect, but at the same time, the way that I'm stressed out and I'm anxious doesn't make any sense, considering that the load of my responsibilities have like decreased significantly. Like, you know, obviously there's other things and goals that I have, but it's more so on my own time. I don't have to necessarily abide by anything else, any deadlines. It's literally on the timing I want. So it's just like, why do that? I think another sign of if you have allowed that survival mode to become your state of being is when you have small triggers. Remember I talked about before, I talked about like the triggers that could possibly trigger you, like, okay, like, you know, your mom talking about your grades in math and you're not good at math and you're really trying. I feel like a signal that you are still in survival mode is the fact that if there are minor triggers or triggers that don't necessarily actually have anything to do with your issue, but you amplify those triggers to the point where you feel like you have to freak out and you feel like you have to almost emotionally protect yourself from those triggers. I kind of want to give an example going back to the mom and the math excuse, but I'm trying to think of what I want to say. Like, let's say for example, your mom comes and let's say for example she asks you to clean the house, right? That obviously doesn't have anything to do with the whole math trigger, but at the same time, the moment you heard your voice, the moment you heard her stern voice asking you to do something, it automatically triggered you because you were just anticipating that criticism, that thing. And now, you know what I'm saying, even though you go ahead and you cleaned the house or did whatever she asked you to do, you still feel uncomfortable, you still feel anxious. And that's what I mean when I say amplifying triggers that don't have anything to do with the situation. That is very much a signal of survival mode. Another signal of survival mode, which is something that I am also addressing within myself, is the fact that being unproductive feels wrong. And it's just, you have to separate, you know, your goals from who you are, your identity. And you know, I do think discipline is important, but I think that we don't value, because we're in a world where it's like career, especially a college student, you got these college influencers, internship, this, that, make your money, this, that, make your money. Don't get me wrong, make your money. But I just think that we do not appreciate or value the fact that you get to wake up every day. If you woke up today and decided to take care of yourself, that is very much a productive day. I've kind of been getting on myself about that because there's so much stuff I like planned out to do and it just didn't happen like the way I wanted it to. So now I just sit here and I'm thinking to myself, like, you know, I woke up today and I try to go to the gym at least 3 times a week, sometimes 4. I ate healthy. I didn't eat what I used to eat in the morning. I'm actually eating healthy. At the end of the day, I took care of myself. I did the things I needed to do for myself in this day. And yeah, I really don't have anything else to say, and I hope that just listening to this kind of just like maybe opened your mind up a little bit to make you wonder or make you realize, you know, hey, am I living in survival mode, and hey, how can I be like nicer to myself and whatnot. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.